Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, YouTube. Today is day 41 of Fear Not. We're going to continue talking about fear today and why we forgive. I think there's two important reasons why we forgive. I believe we forgive because the Bible tells us to do that. That's the most important reason. But I think we also forgive because when you forgive, it frees you. It frees that burden of having to think about it, of having to be mad over it. It frees the burden of maybe sometimes feeling like, how am I going to get this person back? Because when you forgive, you set it free. You're not carrying it. It's not heavy on you anymore. Um, so I think there's two reasons. But let's talk about the first reason a little bit today. Forgiveness as a form of obedience. Matthew 6:14 says, "For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will forgive you also." So if we want God to forgive us, we need to forgive others because we all sin and fall short of the glory of God. And maybe some sins feel like they're bigger than others or they hurt people more, but we all sin. And so if we want God to forgive us, if we want other people to forgive us, then we need to forgive others as well. There's a great parable in Matthew 18 where Peter comes to Jesus and he says, "Lord, how many times should we forgive?" We talked about this a few days ago. And the King James Version says you should forgive seven times, seven times. And the NIV did it a little differently. It says you should forgive 77 times. No matter what the number is, the Bible tells us to forgive and to forgive and to forgive, to continue to forgive. But then Jesus goes into a parable to kind of explain the purpose of forgiving to Peter. So I'm going to read that today. It's in chapter 18. It starts at verse number 23. And it says, "Therefore the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. As he began the settlement, a man who owed 10,000 talents was brought to him. Since he was not able to pay, the master ordered that he and his wife and his children and all that he had be sold to repay the debt." So they were going to be sold. The master says, you owe me all this money. You can't pay it back. So you and your whole entire family are going to be sold and have to go away to a new place with new people because you can't repay this debt. Verse 26 says, "The servant fell on his knees before him, and he said, 'Be patient with me,' he begged, 'and I will pay you back everything.' The servant's master took pity on him, canceled the debt, and let him go." So he asked to be let go, and the master just let him go. Wow. The master who was in charge of everything just said, "You don't have to pay me back. You and your family go." Verse 28. But when the servant, maybe okay. So verse 28, "But when the servant went out," so after the king had set him free, "the servant found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. He grabbed him and begged and began to choke him. 'Pay back what you owe me,' he demanded." So after the king had set him free, he went out, found somebody who owed him money, and started to choke him and said, "You owe me money. Give me my money back." Now him and his family were just set free, and then he went out and did this. The fellow servant fell to his knees and begged him, "Be patient with me and I will pay you back." Verse 30, but he refused. Instead, he went off and had the man thrown into prison until he could pay back the debt. When the other servants saw what happened, they were greatly distressed and went and told their master everything that happened. So all the other servants kind of witnessed this, and they went back and said, "Master, remember that servant that you set his family free? Well, he went out and choked somebody, required his money back, and had that person thrown in jail." Verse 32. The master called the servant in. "You wicked servant," he said. "I canceled all that debt of yours because you begged me. Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servants just as I had on you?" Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servants just as I have on you? And I think Jesus said this was a parable, but I think that's kind of what God is saying. Like when he's looking down on us and he forgives us for things every single day, for private sins, for sins that only we and God know, for public sins, sins that everybody knows. He forgives us when we ask for forgiveness, and He has mercy on us. So how do we, when God has forgiven us for so many things, when Jesus put His life on a cross and died for forgiveness of sin, how do we have the right to hold sin against someone else? If we keep going, verse 33 says, shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant just as I had on you? Verse 34, in anger, his master turned him over to the jailers to be tortured until he should pay back what he owed. Verse 35, this is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother with your heart. So if you don't forgive, not only will God not forgive you, but you're going to receive the repercussions of not forgiving. So I think it's a good parable. I think it's something to think about, the importance of forgiveness, because we've been forgiven. You guys, have a wonderful day. Think about this. Go back and read it for yourself. See how God reveals it to you. I'll see you next time. Love you. Bye-bye.